All right, here we are online. And good morning to everybody who is watching us on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and also listening to us in Clubhouse. It's a pleasure to have you with us this morning, Wednesday, January the 10th. Today, Tim and I have a special guest. We have Joshua Leong with us, who is a cybersecurity professional working here in Japan, working in the field
Oh, I
in
think
this
Maya
field
froze.
for almost, I believe. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, you
I can
froze
hear
for.
you, Maya.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Great, great. Okay, so Joshua, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for joining this session. To everybody who is watching us and listening to us, I'm going to share the link to the previous session with Joshua when we talked about cybersecurity in business. And today we're going to move into a little bit different direction, be more specific online for individuals. So, as Tim mentioned earlier, we've got this scary title, which is Are You Safe Online? And we're going to hear what Joshua can tell us tips and different comments about how to stay safe online. Joshua, so I would like you to begin so we don't keep anybody waiting any longer.
Okay, thanks so much, Maya. And just want to say good morning and Happy New Year to everybody in the chat there. And so, yeah, just to begin with the session and to give a bit of background, as Maya said earlier, during the last session that we had in September of last year, I believe, we discussed barriers to transformation and the business side of cybersecurity and digital transformation in Japan. And so, well, then I think, that the implication and there's a need to discuss, okay, what about us for individuals and how do we manage our risk and stay safe online? And Maya, thank you very much for the very scary and ominous title graphic, right?
Right.
Yeah, the point of this discussion is not to scare people and not to spread what we call in the industry FUD. So fear, uncertainty, and so on. But rather to give our listeners the mindset and the thinking about what's the risk to me and how can I manage it and how can I be aware of the things that I can do to stay safe and to think about that. Yeah. So I think particularly for us in Japan, 2023 was actually a pretty eventful year in terms of personal security and privacy. So I think it would be helpful to examine, in light of that, what we can learn from the trends and events in this past year. So for our topics today, I've got three main points, which is number one, thinking about how to know who to trust. Number two is how to think about our risk. And number three, how to toughen our defenses. So it's basically practical tips and little things that we can do to manage those things. So I think that when I initially spoke to you, Maya, a fundamental issue that came up with the initial sort of ground setting conversation was, in our online lives, we're so dependent on external parties. That is to say, in most part, big tech companies who run the services and who run the platforms that we are using to live our lives, right? And so once we give them our data, we really don't have much of a guarantee other than the promises and contracts that they give us and so on about what they're going to do with that.
Indeed. Yes.
Yeah. So I think that the impact of this is pretty huge if you think about it, right? So let's take, for example, Line in Japan. It's such a big part of our lives. And when I opened Line the other day, right, I was kind of amazed to see the range of things that you could do with it. And I think, most people on the call in Japan are using it, definitely as a contact list and for instant messaging and voice chat and so on. But if you look at the other features, right, it's so expansive. It's got news. You can share videos. You can play video games. You can make orders at the restaurant, pay for things, give gifts, and so on and so forth. So it's really quite expansive and perhaps not to the level of the super apps that they have in China, like WeChat, but it's getting up there. And so can you imagine a life where you wouldn't be able to do any of these things? Is quite hard, right? Like I can't imagine walking into a restaurant, right, and just because I don't have line, it means okay, now I can't order from the menu anymore. Is a little ridiculous. Yeah. And so I think in Japan, we saw multiple instances of, everyday consumers, everyday people like you and me, getting burned by data breaches, which really, I think, is bringing up to us and putting at the forefront of our minds this issue, right? Of is it really okay for us to trust big tech companies with our data? Who do we trust with it? If so, how much? And so on and so forth. So if you think back to last year, right, you of course have, for example, the ongoing trouble that we had with the My Number card system. They're bringing that online. We have multiple system outages with that, and I think the real threat to privacy there is the difficulties that they had in some cases with linking transactions to the right user. So, if you go to the doctor and you use your My Number card as as your health insurance certificate, when you get your charges might go to someone else who has the same name as you, right? So there's difficulties with that and creating, I guess, sort of fear and unease for some people who are thinking of getting on that system. And with regards to Line and Yahoo, two companies that very closely linked together, you saw things like back in August where user location data from the searches was Yahoo searches. They found that was accessible by the Korean parent company, Naver. And Line Yahoo were actually warned by the Japanese Ministry of Internal Communications about, okay, well, perhaps the way that you are representing your data transfers to Naver and the involvement with that is not entirely transparent. It's not clear to consumers and to the general public that you have the security measures in place to make sure that data is limited to the absolute minimum and that there's no unnecessary access from foreign powers and so on. And I suppose that we don't know if these two events were directly connected, but then I'm sure that many of us remember in November last year that there was a big data breach at Line where an attacker was able to access the information of, I think, of about 400,000 users and also Line employees through the common infrastructure that they shared with Naver. And there was an attack against Naver, and they were able to get into Line systems and to look at that. So that, sort of really makes us think about, how much are we trusting big tech companies? Maybe there's things that we can do ourselves and sort of keep our data safe. I would like to inject maybe a bit of nuance and ability to give our listeners the ability to think about that themselves. And I think when we think about risk, that I'm here to give the answer that no one wants to hear, which is that there's no single correct answer to securing your online safety, and there's only trade-offs.
Right.
So I think that there's three main variables that I like to think about when I'm considering this discussion. Is that number one, with risk, how much risk are you willing personally to take on? So you know, if you to look at the two sides of the spectrum, low risk and high risk, thinking about storing things, we should think again and consider about how much we are putting in the cloud and how much we're giving to these big companies, and we shouldn't be giving them anything that we can't afford to lose, or that that would be really critical. Cause critical impact to us if it was leaked out or compromised in some way. Yeah. And going back to the trust conversation, like we have to think about who are we going to trust with our data and how much. And of course, on the spectrum there, you have doing everything yourself, which not everyone can do. It is an option, and it does require sort of technical know-how and time and effort and so on and so forth. But that is an alternative in some senses to. In some ways, to trusting companies with our data. And yeah, and I think linked to this discussion is the third element of the conversation is convenience, and how convenient do you need things to be? So more convenience, I think, will definitely come with trusting external parties more. And of course, that there is more associated risks with that, right? And if you're maybe comfortable with things being a bit less convenient, then you can trust yourself and have, I suppose, the assurance, if you are confident in your own abilities, to say that, okay, I have this data stored in an environment that is completely under control by myself, and then therefore that that I don't need to rely on someone else to give myself access to that. I don't need to rely on someone else to secure that, and so I'm fine with that. So again, those three elements is three interlinked elements is risk, trust, and convenience. So all of this is to say that, again, the giving your data, all of your data to big tech companies, and putting all of your data in one platform is not the only answer. You can still retain some control if you're willing to put in a bit of effort. So if I were to give an example of this, I would say, for example, that if your family photos, or your identity documents, you have scans of identity documents that's really important to you, and that would be something that is going to be very impactful, and there would be big loss incurred if that was to be leaked out. Then you don't need to store that in the cloud. You can create your own solutions at home to store that and back that up, and perhaps that is the way to go for you. And each individual needs to go through this process, and I think the beginning of the year is perhaps a good time to think about this in terms of New Year's resolutions and that sort of thing. Look at this and think about what's going to be the answer to me. What am I for me? What am I most comfortable with in this balance? Yeah.
Joshua, I have a question to you. While listening to you talking about storing, some of the data that you wouldn't like to share with anybody, and you want to have, let's say, control over. So, and you mentioned that we don't have to store that data in the cloud, right? We can keep it at home, offline, and so on. But of course, for some people, avoiding let's say exposure of their data online is inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
And I also wonder if you really try to do that at this point of time. First, of course, I don't think it is possible, but let's assume it is, okay? So, and if you try to limit the data that you disclose online, and give to different organizations and so on, so aren't you running the risk of being entirely isolated from the social systems here and everything? Because that's, in this interconnected society and this interconnected world, I think that being connected is actually convenient for everybody, and it makes people feel, part of the whole. I don't know, maybe this is a more theoretical question, not too practical, but I would like to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think that that is a very important and astute observation, and it's something that I personally think about myself a lot. And you're perfectly right. So if I am going, if I want to participate in our digital society that we have nowadays, um, it's not to say that I don't have a choice, but if I want to participate in the society to a high degree, and I want to use these services that we have, and everybody is using, like Line, like X or Twitter, Microsoft and Amazon and Google and whatever else, there is an extent to which I must accept that risk, and I must trust the other party to do their part with keeping my data secure. Now, that is to say that there are people out there who are wanting to do, who are not willing to accept these risks, and who are wanting to do all of these things by themselves. So they will have, for example, offline backups in their own house of all of their data. They will not use they will not use an Android phone. They will not use an iPhone. They'll have maybe a dumb phone that can't use any apps, and is preventing them from, or at least minimizing the degree to which companies can track them. And of course, the coming with that is a great degree of convenience, and it does take a high degree of commitment to live that kind of lifestyle. But those people, I think, have given uh, given it thought, and they've decided that, hey, that's the right thing for them. And so again, my intent and my purpose with this discussion is not to say, oh, you should cut yourself off completely from the internet. Don't use Google, don't use Amazon, don't use Yahoo or anything like that. Not to say that, but to have a think about, how much risk am I willing to take on? How much am I willing to trust these companies? And if it is the case that, I think it will be for most people, that we're going to continue using these services, maybe there are parts, certain little enclaves and certain little sections of the services that we are using online, where it's like, I'm not comfortable with this being online, so maybe I will try to take care of that myself, right? So trusting yourself is an option. And if for those people who don't have much technical know-how or anything like that, maybe the decision is not to trust yourself. Maybe you think that somebody else, another company, is going to be able to do a better job with that. So that's a perfectly acceptable outcome. I just want everybody to be aware of what are the potential risks, and how can I be comfortable with making this decision for myself.
Yes, and I think that's yeah. I mean, my question was not actually trying by this question. I was not trying to say that we should cut, ourselves off line and so on and so on. But the thing is that I believe that many people are not prepared to actually, find the best solutions. They don't, and the thing is that they don't know what the best solution for them is, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
is there a way, to get information about that, or is it just you, let's say, assess your own abilities, technical abilities, and well, the risk, the perceived risk, let's say, and then act upon this? Or because I believe that without sufficient information, it's really difficult to make informed decisions about anything. So, and I believe also that, especially here in Japan, this cybersecurity topic, it's not a new one, but still it's not talked about enough. So I don't know, how can we approach this in order to make informed decisions about our safety online, personal safety online, and the safety of our data?
Right. Yeah, I think that is a good question. And certainly, I'm not going to attempt to answer every single one of those questions and give a complete overview, give a complete sort of
Mhm.
lecture and like an encyclopedia of what to do in this discussion. Right. This is only an introduction.
Right.
But if people do want to know about this, I think that it's sort of inevitable that we need to go out and seek good information and educate ourselves on um, these issues if we
Mhm.
really do think that they are important to us. And then, being aware of uh, what are the trade-offs that come with each option is going to be um, really important. And in terms of sources of information, certainly there are some great introductory tutorials by people in the cybersecurity industry out there on YouTube, and a lot of people have posted guides on platforms like LinkedIn and Twitter and so on. So I really would encourage people on the call to go and seek that out if that's something that interests them, and they think that this issue is something that is important to them. And in the last section of the talk, which I'll be going into next, I will be giving a few introductory pointers of practical things that we can do. Um, to help ourselves and perhaps give people a few extra keywords and a few extra
Mm.
topics to look into if they want to be if they want to level up their own personal security, and they want to think in more detail and more nuance about that.
Hi,
Wonderful.
Joshua. Hi, this is Yuka. Thank you for the great insight. I'm sorry, before you, okay, when you are sort of sharing your insight about the specific, the procedure that you can take, could you include like how to spot like a fake contact? Because I get a lot of like a fake, like a DMs on LinkedIn. Just
Mm.
example,
Hmm.
sometimes, like the other day I got contact from Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. That was just so absurd, right? That's why I could tell this is a
You're an
fake.
important person, Yuka.
Yeah, no way. I'm not that famous. By the way, Timothy, I couldn't see you. Okay. Um. Anyway, so if you could please let me know if that this contact is from like someone so more ordinary, then I might have sort of misled. So, but these days AI is still not quite there. I could sort of tell, this is not written by a human. This is written by AI. So I could sort of ignore
Hmm.
it. But I'm sure
Hmm.
AI will become much better soon. So if we can share some, the hints going, later in your talk, that would be super nice. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you so much, Yuka. And that is one of the points that I was hoping to address in the next section. Um, are we okay to move on, Maya and Tim, if
Yes, please do.
that's the
Yes,
case? Yeah.
let's
So,
start.
so let me actually start with that point in this last section of practical tips. And I understand that that this is a really big concern for all of us, and I get a lot of these messages as well, right? To as a preface to this section, I just want to make sure that with the intent is that with the technology that we're using in order to live our lives, right? I think that it's important for us to be aware of sort of what's in our control and to use that to the fullest extent. Now, with the fake contact thing, I think that the overarching concept here is one that is repeated a lot in the security industry, which is don't trust, verify. That is to say that don't immediately assume that anybody who is contacting you is who they say that they are. Don't assume that that their intention is exactly what they say that it is. And I would be suspicious of people contacting you out of the blue and asking you for something on a platform like LinkedIn. And this harkens back to I'm sure many of us remember the Nigerian prince scams. It's like, oh, I need to transfer my money to another country, and I'm going to give you a little kickback if you help me. Just give me your bank information, right? This is sort of like an evolution of that. I think so. Definitely be suspicious of sudden and unexpected attempts to contact you, regardless of what platform that's on. This happens via email. It happens through unknown contacts or unexpected contacts adding you online, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, whatever the platform may be. So the second element of the equation is to verify, and on these platforms, basically your profile information is to a large extent public, and I think that we definitely can use that to our advantage to help to verify is this sender actually legit. So let's use LinkedIn for example. So if somebody out of the blue is contacting you on LinkedIn, you've never heard of them before, this is the first time that they're talking to you, what I would do is, for example, verify them by examining their profile, look up their name and their company on Google or other platforms, Glassdoor, etc. See, have a think about a consideration of their background, right? If they have other hits, then that is definitely helpful. I would also say have a look at when the account was created. If it's something that is created recently, if they don't have much post history, if they don't have much information about their education, their qualifications, their employment history, and so on LinkedIn, that's definitely a suspicious sign. And also have a look at their follows and followers as well, and examine them for the same traits. So what will often happen on these platforms, I think Twitter is particularly notorious for this, is that you have what are called like booster bots, right? And they will, it's like a network of fake bot accounts that are created in order to like and to amplify a certain opinion. And if you look at the accounts that are liking and retweeting and spreading these particular tweets and opinions, they are created very recently. They have maybe suspicious sounding names that don't have hits anywhere else on the internet, and their followers are also very similar sorts of accounts. So I think that is definitely one way to check for that. So yeah. And I think these accounts are notorious for trying to send. They'll either ask you for information, or they're going to try and send you a link to get you to download something or get you to log into a particular site or so on and so forth. And so what I would do there is to before clicking on the link, check the URL. Especially if it's embedded in another piece of text, like say, hey, click here. So mouse over it and check the URL of the link to see if it is a legitimate link. So if you get an email that is purported to be from Google and that has a link that says please click here to verify your account, mouse over it and have a look. Is this an actual Google page that they're trying to send me to, or is it some sort of random string of alphanumeric characters, like, I've never heard of that website before. So that's definitely one thing to check as well. And a bit of an advanced tip for people out there is that if you are really having trouble telling whether or not it's a legitimate link or not, one thing you can do is to copy that URL, copy the link, and then throw that in what's called a virtual browser. So basically, this is a browser that's spun up on somebody else on a computer in the cloud, right? And basically, you're just looking at what loads up on that browser, and it's not connected to your machine. So you can put that into a site called like a browser link. Is something that people may want to take note of. Copy it in there and see what pops up. And see if that is what was expected or not. Let me just pause there and see. Yuka, does that help, and does that answer your question?
Yes, that was great. But but sometimes those, fake accounts, they're getting better because they check my profile first. So they even for the fake profile, they put my previous employers. That's why I almost trusted that. This is a different one, not the Crown Prince one. Okay. Anyway. And then sorry, if I can throw in just quick question. So how can I tell what is the safe free downloads? Is there any such a thing? Because sometimes, hey, this is a free, like a PDF converter to the Word document. And then that is twice, and then it's sort of like, it's hacked my account. So these days, there is no safe downloads. Is that the assumption that I should make?
Definitely, I think that the words free and safe, if a company is trying to sell their product through that is kind of a bit does sound a bit fishy, right? There is free and safe stuff out there, and I think that is getting increasingly hard to vet. One thing that you can try and do is let's say that I'm living my life mostly on, for example, my Apple device or like an iPad or an iPhone or something. I think that look for signs of verification on the App Store, and also I think Google Play has a similar sort of function for this about apps. It's definitely not foolproof, but if it is an app that has a lot of people downloading it, it has a large number of reviews, and read the reviews as well to make sure they're not just bot accounts posting the same thing over and over again. That's one thing that you can use to verify it, to see that it's actually verified and accepted developer by the store itself is another way. And I think also another thing that we can do is for software for Windows and Mac and that sort of thing, is to download it. Don't run it yet, but then upload the file or send the URL to a website called VirusTotal. And this is basically a malware or a virus database that it will check the file to see if it's being detected by various antivirus providers out there as something that is malicious. That's another sort of heuristic that you can use when you download files off the internet, or you're trying to get a program off the internet. But definitely, saying something that is offering you a premium feature for free, there's got to be some sort of gotcha there in somewhere.
Yeah, I'm a big sucker for the word free. But anyway, thank you so much.
Aren't we all? Yeah. And you could, just going back to that question that you had before about the fake accounts that are posting, they're trying to lure you in with information like, oh hey, I saw that you worked at such and such a company, and I think it'd be great if we could have a talk, and etc. etc. That's definitely a thing that these attackers and these people are doing, and I think that really brings to the forefront for us that we should be aware of what we're putting online, right? That what we share on social media is to a large extent public information, and that can be used against us. So it is a double-edged sword, definitely. So attacker can use this information to craft a story, to scam you or ask you about information about yourself, your employer, your acquaintances, and so on and so forth. So definitely, right? If they are doing that, don't trust verify, ask them for more information about, for example, things that if they claim to be somebody who knows you, like an old friend or something, ask them some information that only they would know, and try and verify their story that way. Because if it's just a run-of-the-mill hood, there will be sort of inconsistencies that come up in the midst of this. So don't be too trusting, especially if somebody is coming to you with a really good offer. There's got to be a gotcha somewhere, and I think it really is our job and our responsibility to try and find that, and make them work for their money, right? So I think that is one thing that we should really be cognizant of doing. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Yuka?
Yes, great.
Yeah. Thank you so
Hello.
much.
Hi, good morning, Rumiko. We have Rumiko in Clubhouse as well. So thank you for joining us, Rumiko, this morning. I know that you're busy and your presence is very much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you, Maya and Joshua. And I'd like to comment a little bit about 3 points Joshua brought up today, which is risk, trust, and convenience. So, and on top of that, I would like to add a little bit of comment and invite furthermore insights from Joshua. Is that okay, Maya and Joshua?
Sure. If Joshua is
please go
fine
ahead.
with this.
Okay, good. Because I'm not an IT specialist, but according to Maya, thank God, I was supposed to be an experienced financial professional, and I do use the technologies for transaction and all, and on the corporate level as well as a personal level. And how I try to consider this matter is we have to consider about the purpose of what for we are using the particular technology, anything like line or whatever, and what is our tolerance level, and what are the time scope that we are allowing ourselves. These 3 points are critical from my perspective at times, because people might hear the word risk and immediately react like allergy, like oh, it's a bad thing, it's a scary thing. But if it's a risk there, we can hedge it from the financial perspective. So for example, like we can put the insurance or whatever, right? There's a patches, way to get around. And when it comes to investment, for example, or financials, very basic rule is like you don't put all the eggs on the same basket.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna separate, right? And we're gonna put some, to the other counterparty or some other baskets and stuff like that, right? And yes, I understand the importance of the convenience, but at times, if we have plenty of the time, for example, we don't have to use it right away or like next couple of days. We can just peppermint the stuff and save it for another half a year later or something, canned food or whatever, right? So that's why when I try to interpret this issue as a financial vehicles, for example, like if you are so in a hurry and want to do everything by yourself, maybe you're gonna withdraw all the cash and put it into your drawer, so that it's safe, all under your control, right? Or else you might want to utilize several bank accounts to, withdraw anything or transfer the money to somewhere. Or if you want to, count on the government, you might buy bonds. Or if you want to have a house, then you might want to buy houses or properties. And, if you want to go for a good investment, which is like a pretty much, when it comes to the risk is higher, the return of the investment is normally higher. That's a very basic goal. So, getting back to the individual point, what would you like to have? What is the purpose? What is your tolerance level for each individual thing that you have? And what is the time scope, the existing point that you want to make utilize of the thing? So from that perspective, I'd like to invite your comment, Joshua, with regards to the IT thing, on your personal tips and all. If anything, like I'm not clarifying myself, I appreciate your comments and all. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Rumiko. And great to hear from you today. But and I think that what you just said was really insightful, and I think that is basically what I'm trying to say with this discussion, right? That we need to make a decision for ourselves based on our own risk tolerance, and when we go to like the field of risk management, there's a lot that transfers over from the financial field to the IT and security risk field. As well, right? So we need to think about our risk tolerance and think about how do we deal with the risks that are presented to us based on the intent, basically the prioritization and the intensity and the impact, right? So you can choose to mitigate the risk. You can implement some sort of security control to reduce the amount of risk that you face, or you can transfer the risk, and that would be something like buying insurance. You can choose to avoid the risk, which is maybe don't even use that platform in the first place. Don't expose yourself to the risk in the first place. Or you can just choose to accept the risk. If you think that the cost of reducing or avoiding the risk is too high, it's going to be like, okay, all right, I accept that there's this risk and that this might happen with me engaging in this particular activity or doing this particular thing online, and I'm fine with that. So there are a range of different ways for us to address this.
Yeah, thank you, Joshua. Anything to add, Maya? Because I think what Joshua is very good at is about the tools of, for example, insurance thing, or scam stuff of the web or emails, or protections of the IT stuff. So that's his area. So I'll leave it to you. Thank you very much for your insights and comments.
Thank you, Rumiko. Yes. Thank you very much for the questions. We have a couple of more questions, but before that, I wanted to also invite Cam to share. Cam, hello to you. Share your thoughts, and if you have questions, of course, please let us know.
That's great. Maya, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. This is my first time using this, so I'm hoping that it works.
It is
well, look,
working.
This is a very interesting conversation. Joshua, thank you. Very insightful. I think I spent 3 months last summer in Japan, and I had an opportunity to meet Taro Kano, and I asked him specifically about this question regarding AI and cybersecurity. What I found very interesting is that at the very highest levels, the Fujitsus, the Mitsubishis, they're very on top of cybersecurity. They have the best tools. They're working with CISA, they're working with Homeland Security, they're working with their Indo-Pacific partners. But what I found more interesting was when I started visiting corporate Japan, and I don't mean in Tokyo or in Kyoto or Osaka, but like Sendai or Amori or Sapporo, this notion of cybersecurity, or even having an understanding of what a CISO does, was very surprising. And what I walked away with was that there's a tremendous opportunity. And I know there are several organizations today working on this, but you kind of need this private-public partnership. And I think one of the areas where I see a huge opportunity is to focus on the educational side of this, kind of like very much what you're doing here today. But I think this educational aspect would benefit Japan if this was incorporated similarly how we've done in the US at the educational institutions. So back in 2019, we started a program that was K through 12. And the idea behind that was to address a couple of gaps. One was the educational gap, and with a lot of misinformation and disinformation that we hear about today, there's a critical need at the K through 12 level to start teaching these cybersecurity mis and disinformation concepts. And it may not solve the now problem, but it's an educational gap that I think that's a huge opportunity for Japan to kind of address. But you kind of need that government educational kind of partnership. So I'd love to get some thoughts on that from your perspective on what you're seeing. If I'm kind of seeing it differently than what you've experienced, but one of the things that I hope to accomplish on this trip, I'll be in Japan next week for a month, and I'm having a lot of conversations with CIOs across Japan about cybersecurity, infrastructure, and but you're only as strong as your weakest link. Mm-hmm. And so, like I said, at the very highest level, you have outstanding, operators and technology. But when you go to middle market, small, medium enterprises, they don't even have these tools, or they don't know these questions. And oftentimes it's the CEO of the company in cyber decisions. So I'll turn it over back to you. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Cam. That is a really great insight. And it's something that, I do think about myself a lot as well. Like you said, there is a lot of opportunity in the sort of SME market there, small, medium sort of enterprises. But I think, even with the large Japanese giants, compared to their peers overseas, we're still lagging behind somewhat with regards to sort of digitization and prioritization of cybersecurity as a big issue. Like I would note, for example, like at Fujitsu, for example, they only appointed a chief information security officer themselves a couple of years ago when they had the Project Web breach, and in the sort of aftermath of that. And I think for SMEs, the one of the big barriers, and this is something that we addressed in the previous talk in September a little bit, is that one of the barriers is definitely education, as you said, but also cost. A lot of these cybersecurity solutions are coming from overseas, particularly the US. They can be quite expensive. They're also not helped by the very weak yen at the moment. And so when a regional company like Sendai or Fukuoka or something like that is already running on pretty thin margins, the question is really for the CEO, the CIO, and people like that is, do we really want to spend that much money on this? We've never been hit before this. Maybe it's okay, right? Is the sort of thing that's going through their heads. And one very big thing for companies like that, what they're thinking about is, what is my neighbor doing? What are people in the same industry? And my peers, what are they doing about this? How much are they spending on this? What sort of solutions are they procuring? Is a big thing, and that is true from the very bottom up to the very top. Giants like Toyota and Nissan and Mitsubishi and stuff. They all look at each other and say, "Oh, what's this guy doing? What's that guy doing?" In order to sort of level themselves out and say, if this is good enough for Nissan, says that this is good enough for Toyota, it's good enough for me, right? To give an example, and the education, I think, is a really big issue. Sorry.
Yeah, until you get ransomware, and then your medical healthcare records are locked up, or the My ID program doesn't work anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and I think that is the big impetus for a lot of companies to deal with these issues. Oh no, I got hit. Like, what do I do now? Right? Better start spending money on it, because now they know, what the impact is. And let me just address the last point as well, which is the education. And this is not something that is going to be changed overnight. But I think it's really showing that throughout the 2000s and the 2010s that we didn't really have computers and use of IT and that sort of thing as part of the Japanese curriculum in elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. And only now is we're starting to realize what they're calling the Giga School project, which is to give these kids in schools tablets and laptops and other sorts of devices, and actually sort of integrate that technological aspect into the curriculum. How successful this is going to be, like we don't know yet, but there are certainly concerns that I see from the teachers who do not really have much experience with the technology, trying to teach the children to do it, and what we need to encourage here is like the hackers of old that came up in the 80s and 90s and previously, right? That these are self-didactic, they teach themselves, they are inquisitive, they're actually going to look into like, how does this computer work, and be really inquisitive about that. And that's how we get the people who are the technological experts and the leaders of tomorrow is by encouraging them to do that and really convincing the youth that there's worth in doing that.
Absolutely. I'd love to connect with you while I'm in Japan. I think we're already linked on LinkedIn. I'll send you a note after this and have a couple of ideas that I'd love to run by you.
Yes, please, definitely.
Right. So I'm sorry. I know, Maya, you have to close in 10 minutes, but can I throw in my 2 cents? Or no,
Please.
2 cents worth of questions.
Yes.
So with respect to those like we've been talking about this DX revolution, digital transformation for maybe several years now, and then it's really a challenging road ahead. One of the reasons is it's absolute shortage of qualified engineers. It seems like in every area, Japan is sort of suffering from labor shortage, but especially in this engineering field. So Joshua, so those like what's the Giga School? Is that going to sort of designed to solve those engineer shortage in the future?
I think that indirectly it might contribute to it. But yeah, you're very right there that Japan has a shortage of engineers and technically skilled people. And we find that in a lot of cases for big companies, Japanese tech giants, your Mercari and your Rakuten and Line and people like that, that they are importing this talent from overseas. The foreigners are doing all of the development and so on, and it's not just engineers. It's and I don't want to limit the field of security and digital transformation to that. You need other sorts of people to deal with, for example, the legal aspect, the risk management aspect, and people who can deal with the financial aspect of that as well. And there's a whole range of different professions that we need to sort of complement each other in order to get a good result here. But definitely there's a shortage of technical personnel. I think that it does start with education, but I think that the primary challenge is right for Japanese children and students growing up today. They need to be able to see that they can earn a good living and be fulfilled in their careers by doing by being an engineer, by being a cybersecurity expert, by engaging in this sort of digital transformation stuff. And I'm not sure that we have the path to that yet in Japan, because definitely, right, for careers in a big Japanese tech company, you're not going to get paid $300,000-$400,000 a year that somebody at Google or Facebook would get paid for doing the same or a similar job. So it's a difficult prospect, right, and a difficult pill to swallow for companies to pay their workers that much. But I think that is one of the things causing the disparity there.
You have to tell them, hey, we all love Japan. But anyway, okay. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Yuka. Yeah, I think that once again, like most of the things here, we basically are looking at generational changes because probably in the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be very difficult to get native-born Japanese specialists in this field. So, of course, I believe that some people may re-qualify, so by taking courses and learning, but that's going to be a very small percentage, and probably the next wave of Japan-born specialists will belong to the next generation at least. So maybe once again we have to be patient when it comes to improving such social trends. But I think this is, of course, the case not only here in Japan, in other countries as well, because it's a relatively new field when we think about it as compared to legacy industries. Of course, cybersecurity has been an issue for about 20 years, and it's not anything really like it's quite a short term still. But yes, okay. So, and Yuka, go ahead.
Sorry. Last time, yeah. So I'm just thinking. So some people said the reason Japan is suffering from like a sort of engineering shortage is partially because of language. So, like a lot of sort of computer language is based on English, but I really don't agree with this assessment. Do you think it's right, Joshua? I mean, it's a technical terms. Are they sort of universal? So the language cannot be that huge barrier to become a good security engineer. Am I right on this, or am I misguided?
I think you're absolutely right, Yuka. So the Japanese developers, they can code just as well as their Western counterparts, and they have the same sort of knowledge and the same sort of depth of knowledge of the tools, of the languages, and stuff like that. So to say that because the language is based on English, so it's more difficult for Japanese professionals. I don't think that's an issue at all. What I think is the issue is in terms of developing solutions that are innovative and useful, and actually move the needle in terms of what can we do with the technology in Japan, is that we have a very risk averse culture, and it's very, very difficult, like in the corporate sense, for Japanese companies to embrace the same ideology and the same philosophy as companies from Silicon Valley, which are fail fast, learn fast. So you're bound to make mistakes. That's inevitable. People are gonna get angry at you. But the philosophy is that you take risks and you fail and you learn from it, and then you make something better. And the society is okay with that. In Japan, we don't want to fail in the first place. And if we have failure somewhere, the question is always setsume sekinin. It's saihatsu boishisaku and things like that. What are we going to do who's going to take responsibility? How are we going to prevent this from happening again, etc., etc. And then because of that, I think that is an impediment to sort of bigger things happening.
Yeah, I don't think it's a surprise that Kaizen took root in Japan because it's a low risk way to keep improving. It minimizes, it mitigates your risk of big failures that can, work against you. So yeah, it's hard to get forgiven when you take a risk here and fail. It's hard to get back up and keep going, for sure.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, we need chapter 11, don't you think, in Japan? Or maybe this is a topic for Timothy. Sorry.
Right. Yes, I think that, well, once again, Timothy may be busy right now to join and, to take the bait, sorry. But basically, once
Maya,
again,
if
yes,
I would like to comment on the chapter 11 Japanese version, yes, we do have.
you have chapter 11?
No, exactly chapter 11, because we have different acts.
Uh-huh.
So it's not called chapter 11, but yes, we do have, not only for the corporate level, but as well as the individual level too. It's a very unique culture here, but we do have a jurisdiction here.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that. Yes.
Well,
But
the failure is also the social level, not the legal level, that can be devastating to people.
yes, that's what I wanted to say, that compliance and culture here are, well, two different levels. So
yes, exactly. That's spot on. Yes.
Yes, and culture is much stronger than the fear of compliance. So the cultural fears are stronger than those of compliance, anyway. So, but yes, I believe that we can continue this conversation later. In the near future, because it's 9 o'clock already. Joshua, I would like to hear your words in conclusion of the session, and then we'll proceed with closing the room.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, Maya, Tim, and everybody in the room for your time. Just to close, before I close, I just want to raise a couple of tips that I wanted to mention for everybody here, because I didn't get to go through all of the tips that I had. But if you want to message me on LinkedIn, that's something definitely I can share with you. I would want to say to everybody that please look into using a solution like a password manager to ensure that all of your passwords for your accounts are strong and random, and you're not reusing passwords for different solutions. And insofar as possible, I know it's difficult in Japan, but really try to use two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication, the little one-time password, the code that is generated on your mobile app that you enter when you log in, is something that's important to have to prevent things like account takeover and so on. I think that the tips before, they still stand. Don't trust, verify, and be aware and be conscious of what you're putting online, both in cloud storage solutions, which could be leaked in the data breach, or what you're sharing on social media. I think that this is a really important issue that we can't cover in its entirety with just this 1 hour discussion. But I think we had some really good points raised by the commenters in the room, and I think that it's something that we should consider continue in the future. And really happy to everybody here for giving me the chance to speak and giving me your time.
Thank you very much, Joshua. To everybody who listened to us, took part in the discussion, and watched us on LinkedIn and YouTube, thank you very much for your time on Wednesday morning. We'll be here once again on Sunday, when Timothy Langley will be talking about what happened in Japanese politics during the week, and once again next week on Wednesday at 8 o'clock. So join us again at that time. In the meantime, just, we wish you a great midweek. And see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. Please come back.
Thank you.
Thank you.